Have you ever had another person, man or woman, that talked to you in a way that made you feel really disrespected, spoke to you in a way that made you feel about that big, even made you feel subservient in the way that they handled you in that conversation? If you've ever had that feeling, if that conversation has ever taken place, and I'm sure that it has, then you know the feeling inside that you can get when a person speaks to you in a way that you feel is just disrespectful. You play that conversation over and over in your mind, and you go over what that person said to you, how they said what they said to you, and then you think about what you said and what you didn't say, and you start to get upset all over again, and you want to go back and handle that situation because you felt like you didn't handle it like you should have. If you've ever had that feeling, then you know exactly what I'm talking about, and you like to make sure that you avoid those situations because you don't like how that makes you feel. I definitely understand that. In the world of trucking, in the world of freight brokering, those things happen sometimes. Shippers and carriers may speak to you in a way that you may feel disrespectful. And I definitely understand that. And I'm not one of those type of people that give shippers and carriers a pass just because they're customers. Because at the end of the day, yes, they are the customer, but the customer is not always right. I know we hear that cliche that the customer is always right, but that's just not the case. Sometimes the customer is as wrong as two left shoes. And then sometimes I could be wrong. So it's not about who's right, who's wrong, me trying to prove that I'm right and you're wrong. It's more so about you and I solving a problem together. In order for us to solve that problem together, we have to be able to communicate effectively. And in my opinion, effective communication starts with respectful communication. You and I have to have a mutual respect for one another. I respect what it is that you have to say. You respect what it is that I have to say. Does not mean that we agree with one another. It's not about us agreeing. It's just about having that mutual respect. Then we can have effective communication. Then we could possibly solve our problems together, because that's what it's about at the end of the day. It's about us solving a problem together. Our shippers have a problem. I come together with them to help them solve that problem. My carriers have a problem. I come together with them to help them solve their problem. They are helping me solve my problem. So there should be a mutual respect for all of us. And when we're communicating, we should show that respect. So let's jump into the 5 proven ways that will help you communicate more effectively, get more customers for your business, move more loads, and yes, earn more money. So first up, and most important in my opinion, when it comes down to being an effective communicator, to being more respectful in conversation with your counterparts, is to always observe rule number 1, that golden rule. What is the golden rule? It's simple. It's treat others like you want to be treated. Talk to other people like you want them to talk to you. Do unto other people like you want them to do unto you. When we observe that number 1 golden rule, then conversation would go a whole lot more smoothly because you have respect for that person. Again, it's not about agreeing with everything the person says, although we're not setting out to be in disagreement. We're setting out to be on agreeable terms. So we're trying to find compromises sometime instead of looking for confrontation. We are not trying to find an argument. Sometimes when we are talking to our friends and our customers, we are not trying to figure out how we can do something. Sometimes we're trying to figure out how we can say no. You're not in the business of trying to tell your customers no. If it's necessary that you say no, then of course you'll say no. But if we can find a way to say yes, if we can find a way to satisfy our customers, that's exactly what we want to do. But always, always, always observe rule number 1. Treat others like you want to be treated. The second rule that I want you to be aware of and keep on your mind, especially before you go into conversation with other people, and that's to always go into that conversation saying to yourself, I am going to listen to understand what the person is saying. I am not going to listen just to respond. Oftentimes, we only listen to form our thoughts, to respond to what the person is saying. So we're not really giving that person our undivided attention. We're just giving them enough attention to hear a little bit of what they're saying. And now the rest of the time that they're talking, we're forming our thoughts. What we're saying to that person when we do that is that my response is more important than what you have to say. The third rule that I want you to be observant of that will help you to become a better communicator is to check your emotions at the door. Check your ego at the door. Remove emotions and just deal with the actual facts. Now, that's not easy to do. When you're charged up, when you're a certain type of person, you're usually speaking a certain type of way, you may be a passionate person, it is difficult to remove emotions from the equation. But the better you get at removing emotions, removing your ego, checking it at the door, the better your conversations are going to become. Because it's not about you and your ego. It's not about you and your emotions. It's about solving a problem. And when there are a whole lot of emotions to a certain thing, when there's a lot of passion, it's hard to solve that problem. It gets harder because there's so much energy into that. We have to calm it down, bring it back to the center, and handle that problem without emotions. And don't be afraid to stop the conversation. Sometimes if you realize that the conversation is going a little bit too far or is about to get out of hand, the best thing to do is to say, hey, let's talk when we both have cooler heads. Let's talk when we both can have a more intelligent conversation about how we can solve this problem. Because if you allow it to go too far, you might realize, man, I have said some things, or the person has said some things, and we may not be able to come back from that. So we'd rather stop the conversation than realize, oh man, the conversation has gone too far and we didn't stop it. Rule number 4, take winning and losing off of the table. Having a conversation with your shipper or your carrier is not about you winning or you losing. Yes, we will celebrate those times that we win in negotiation, but when we're having conversations, trying to solve problems, issues, it's about solving those problems and issues. It's not about me trying to prove to the carrier or the shipper that I'm right and they are wrong. That's not the business that we're in, because when I'm trying to prove that I'm right and they're wrong, even when I'm right, I lose that conversation. So this is not about winning and losing. We want to take that off of the table and realize this is just a conversation that we are having as teammates to come together to figure out how we can solve the problem at hand. Rule number 5, always sit down to yourself after you've had some of those tough conversations and do an assessment. Say to yourself, how did I handle this situation? How will I grade myself in the way that I handle this situation? If I had this to do it again, would I do it differently? What could I have said to the shipper or carrier to get a different result? How could I have said something that may have gotten a different result? Really do an assessment of that call and find out what you did and what you could have done differently. And then accept full responsibility. You see, a lot of times people always look for someone else to blame. Oh, they did this or they said that. What I want to do is look within and then say to myself, hey, are you the problem here? Could you have done something differently? Because if you could have and you didn't, then you have to accept some of the responsibility for that. So I want to be the type of person that accepts full responsibility, then look for somebody else to give the responsibility to. I don't want to be that person that's pointing to say it's somebody else's fault. Because most time when we're pointing and saying that it's somebody else's fault, that finger is pointing right back at us. So we always want to look at that situation and see what you could have done differently. And then the next time you get a chance, do something differently. In conclusion, the easy thing to do when situations get tough is to blow up and lose control. It takes a bigger person, it takes a more intelligent person to work through things and handle things in the most professional way. So that's what I wanted to share with you today. I certainly hope this information has been helpful. If you want to learn more about the freight broker business, I'll leave a free link in the description. It's my 5-video series titled How the Load Movement Process Works. It will give you a look into the freight broker business, let you see exactly how it works before you come into it. And just in case you're not quite sure of what you want to say when you first start reaching out to shippers, I'll leave a free link here that gives you the details on what I say to shippers. So until the next time, I wish you the very best in your life and business. See you at the top, because the bottom is much too crowded.